All right, welcome. I think we are live. And so, welcome everyone to today's Google Hangout. So excited to be here with my dear friends, Tim and Tanya Bothams. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
They are in Australia. And then also Pam Houghteling, who is in New Mexico. Hello, Pam.
Hi, everybody.
We thought today we wanted to get together because we are all sort of have a strange kind of interest in our planet, and we come from totally different angles and totally different ways of approaching this whole topic, and yet we all also overlap in so many ways. And so today I really just wanted to have some kind of a lively conversation about what else is possible with the planet. You know, what can we create together, and what can we inspire others to be creating around the planet, with the planet. I think we all know that the planet as a whole is a little bit in dire straits. So we're just looking at how can we change it? Can we change it? And what have we been actually facilitating or doing that is different to possibly create a change? So I don't actually want to be the moderator here. I just wanted to open this up and sort of just start the conversation. So, yay, guys, take it from here. Like, so what tools can we give people? What can we say about the planet how do we see the planet different from others? Like, what can we sort of start with here? Let's go.
Okay, Suzy, I might start. If you look at the planet, like us as human beings on this planet, we're the people that have the power to change what's going on. And we all look at the animals and see them as not as intelligent as us. But I think the human race has got to step up and take control of the situation and see ourselves as the intelligent beings that we really think we are, and take control of the situation. And start being the conductors of the planet, start helping the planet, because really, can the horses and the animals really, they haven't got the intelligence to change what's going on. We have. And if we can really take control and look at what we're doing and look at the practical ways how we can change what's going on, we can make a huge difference just by stepping up and start to realize that we are the conductors of the planet. And we can make the physical changes and energetic changes that can change what's going on.
Yeah. Well, the interesting part about that, Tim, is in a way you just were saying, like, we are the ones that have to really step up and change things, because we are also the ones that created a lot of this mess that we're in. And you know, the interesting part about it is, like, I often thought about it, if we were no longer on the planet would find balance pretty quickly without us on it. And so what intelligence does the planet have, and what intelligence do the animals have that we haven't yet acknowledged that actually will create that? So is there actually in truth really something we could learn from the way that the animals and the planet interact that would give us that clue on, you know, possibly like, let's see, like, you know, so I know what you're saying, and I do actually, yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there because it was fun.
But I think what it is to me is that we're not being with the planet. Like the telecourse series I just did, What Nature Can Teach You About Being, if you look at how the animals be, there's nothing in nature or no animal in nature that doesn't, that's not out of balance with nature. Like just for an example, if you look at the kangaroos, they don't breed when there's a drought coming. They sense that. But we don't seem to sense those things, or we don't allow ourselves to sense those things, and we just keep breeding and breeding and breeding. But they're the sort of things I'm sort of talking about. Like, if we notice that the kangaroos do that, well, why don't we take notice of that and do the same thing? But we're not taught to sort of be like that. And it's about connecting to nature and seeing what nature does, and then being that, and then what else is possible on top of that.
And I think it's also more about what we, like what Tim is just saying, what we can be with the planet. And instead of you know, taking and destroying it. We could be contributing, and when we contribute, something greater would be able to show up.
Yeah, that is a really good point, isn't it? And often one that we're not really not really considering as a possibility. Right, Pam? I think you have some stuff to say about that too.
Because I mean, so often when people look at what's going on with the planet, we go to doing, like what can we do, what can we intervene with. You know, Tanya, what you said about what can we be, what I find is the space I choose to be has a huge impact on me, on the planet, and what's possible to change. And you know, it's interesting. The question that's been coming up for me recently is the Earth actually what we think it is, or is there a lot more to it? And it's from that space of being that you can start to perceive what's beyond what we all think of as, oh, this rock that we're walking around on, or even if you're like, oh, it has, you know, more to it than that. But it's, to me, it's so much where we have really strong points of view about whether it's what the Earth is or isn't, or what's going on. From that space, we go into all the doing, and it's, to me, it's just going down the drain when you go to that space. Whereas if it's, well, actually, so in classes I've done, what we're working with is the space we be and what that makes possible in terms of change. And if everyone on the planet was choosing to be with the Earth, or not even everybody, if just a lot more than currently are, we're choosing to be with the Earth. And Tim, in the way you were talking about of being aware of the rhythms and the cycles and the what all the inhabitants of the Earth who aren't shutting off their awareness, all the animals and plants are choosing, then we would have so much more awareness of what we could change and how we could step up and do things different.
Yeah, I love all of that, and you know, for me personally too, it's like the difference between being in the doo-doo head piece of that, or really just really being, which is so not really something we are even encouraged to have in our lives. You know, so much is defined by what we do and not do, or like all of that, rather than really what is being. You know, and of course, like with the tools of Access Consciousness that we're all using here, we're coming closer and closer to being, which is just so different. And I think a lot of people, when you don't have that in your life, then oftentimes you may not totally be aware of what is that even, like what does that mean to be? And yet, you know, the more that we're stepping into that, the more it sort of, it's like, wow, there is so much to it that maybe I hadn't even thought about before. So yes, definitely the tools have helped me to kind of get a bit more of a sense of that. And still yet, you know, I feel sometimes like, oh God, I need to do something to do this or to change something, you know, and I do get there's a little bit of that. Obviously, there's a little bit of, we can't just sit at home and, you know, be. And being doesn't actually mean that we're no longer doing either. So, you know, I guess it's like the energy with which you are being in the world that really is going to create a difference and a change. So, like, being doesn't mean that you're no longer active. You still are active, but you're not doing it from the sense of I have to do. And so, but I really wonder too, like, you know, what are the things that we are being or doing today to actually create a different possibility and to really change what has been created on this planet? Like, you know, maybe we can give a couple of examples so that people maybe have a sense of what they could choose too. Because sometimes I feel like people don't know what's available to choose either. Aside from the typical things like, you know, maybe joining an organization, and a lot of people do that, but is that actually what will change things, or has that really had the impact that we have hoped for so far?
Well, I would love to hear Tim and Tanya talk about what they've done with their property, because I think that's really getting at what you're talking about there, Suzy.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Pam, I think just sort of recapping on what Suzy's talking about, I think the biggest difference between what we do and what the mainstream, whether it be biodynamics, conventional farming, permaculture, or organics, is it's the tools of access. And I really think that judgment and all the things that go with judgment, a lot of the things that are destroying the planet. And like, just for example, recently I went to a biodynamics course and I turned up there in our BMW. And for people that don't know, once you do a lot of access classes, you become really aware of people's projections at you. And the projections I got just because I had a nice car from all these people at this course, it wasn't nice. And I thought to myself, God, biodynamics is one of the leading modalities in farming that's supposed to help change the world. And then I really got that it's not biodynamics, permaculture, organics that's going to change the world. It's consciousness. And that's probably what we're doing on our place, Pam. Like, people say to us, well, why's your food taste different to other people's? And I don't think it's that we really do much different here. I think it's just we don't have any judgment of the animals. We don't project things at them. We don't have conclusions of them. We just let them be. And I think that shows up in the final product. And it's just like being around someone that has no judgment of you. Like, there's a sense of peace and there's a sense of ease. It's like being around the animals, and when you're out in nature, there's no judgment in nature. There's no conclusions in nature. There's no handbook to say this is how you do it. They just be, and they just go with the flow. They go with the seasons, and then even when certain things show up on the planet, they just change direction and go another way. And I think that's sort of what we're trying to do on the farm. We're trying to look at nature and see how nature works and emulate that, and then add the energy that we be to contribute to it all.
And work with it, not against it.
Yeah, and work with it. And I think the end product that shows up is something that's that contributes to your body and when you consume it, and it also is continually contributing to the planet around us. Like Gary just talked to the facilitators, how the biggest pollution on the planet is judgment. And the best way for me to describe that is a plant. Underneath a plant's leaves, the plant's leaves have little things called stomata. And these little stomata, they open up, and that's where they take in carbon dioxide, and they also release gases and moisture and stuff out of that. But what they've discovered is when a person goes around a plant, or where it's in an area where the environment's being destroyed or not treated how it should be, these little stomatas, they close up, and they don't take in anywhere near the carbon dioxide they should. And they also don't release all the nutrition back out in the atmosphere, like the water vapor and the atmospheric minerals that they should. So when you think of that in the context of how much effect is that having on the planet, and how much effect is that having on an environment, if you're in an environment and you're projecting all those emotions of anger, rage, hate and fear out, like all the plants are contracting, so they're not contributing. And I think that's what's different on our place, Pam. We don't have those, or maybe sometimes we do.
Very rarely.
Yeah. We don't have those thoughts, feelings and emotions of anger, rage, hate and fear. And it has a flow-on effect to the farm and the animals. So if they're just simple tools people can use to be aware of that what you're being is what's being projected out into nature, and it's affecting the plants, and it's also affecting the animals.
And the planet.
Yeah. Because imagine if anger, rage, hate and fear didn't exist on the planet. Imagine how much more carbon dioxide would be processed by the plants. And then imagine how much oxygen would be put back out on in the planet compared to what's there now. So it would have a huge change.
Mm-hmm.
And when you said before, Pam, about it wouldn't take many of us to change what's going on, it wouldn't, because imagine, like, what have we got, 7 billion people? Imagine half of those people on the planet if they weren't projecting those thoughts, feelings, and emotions out there. Imagine just that alone, what effect that would have. So that's my take on it anyway. But also, Pam, one of the stories I like to tell people too is when we first moved into our farm, or when I bought it back off my father, I used to, and this is pre-access, I used to have a lot of judgments about the way people treated the planet and the way people used to come in and buy farms and chop everything down and have no respect for nature and have no awareness of what they were doing. But the thing I realised is that me projecting that energy out there, I was attracting more of that. And as you drive into our street, where our farm is, there was a property for sale. And because I had so many projections and point of views and all that garbage about all that stuff I just talked about, I really think I generated a guy buying a property in our street that went through and knocked everything down, cleared a heap of trees out, which disrupted a heap of cockatoos and koalas and everything else. And it was a big wake-up call to me. It was like a ding-ding moment that what you put out there is what you get. And it really made me look at what I was doing and what I was putting out there in regard to creating a different planet. So if people use that themselves, like there's so much out there now about how people are fighting to save the planet, and all it's doing is creating more of the destruction and more of the judgment, which is actually harming the planet in a greater way than we even are really aware of, I think. Do you want to add anything to that, Tim? Yeah. So, yeah, do you understand what I mean about that, Suzy and Pam? Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not really sure where to go from there.
You know, what it makes me think of is so often when we think about the planet and changing things on the planet, we're looking out there to, you know, how do we change what this company's doing or this thing? And what you're talking about is really owning, being responsible for your own self, and that goes beyond just the actions you take. It's, you know, the thoughts you think and the energy you project out to the world affects the plants, affects the animals. You know, one of the things that I love about using the Access tools is I know, you know, in this moment, if I'm sitting here stewing about things or mad at my kids or whatever it is, it's like I'm broadcasting crap to the universe. And in that moment, I can stop and ask myself some questions and look at my points of view and clear them and choose to be a space that is a contribution to me, my body, my family, the earth. All it takes is a moment to change that. And you don't have to wait for the whole world to come along on that boat. Every moment you choose it, you're creating something different.
Can I just add something to that, Pam? Like, one of the things we do have to get on this planet as well is that our thoughts, feelings, and emotions are an energy. It's just like if we look at the birds singing is an energy. Like I told a story in one of my classes once about how a certain bumblebee lands on a flower and it changes the vibrations of its wings to play middle C. And when it does this, the flower then squirts out pollen all over the bee, so the bee can then take the pollen to the next flower. But if you think of that in the context of us putting out judgment, like it's the same thing. It's the bee's putting out an energy in an acoustic vibration through the sound of its wings, and it's no different from us putting out an energy from our head, and it's feeding something. And whether it be good or bad, it's having an effect. So imagine if we could turn that energy around and what's the opposite to thoughts, feelings, and emotion? I mean, anger, rage, hate, and fear. Whatever that is.
Energy is consciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
It's being. It's the energy. It's the sexualness. It's all that sort of stuff. Like it's an energy, and we're putting that out there, and we've got to look at what it's creating, and we've got to look to nature and see how nature puts those energies out there and what they create. Like Steiner, Rudolf Steiner, the guy that came up with the concept of biodynamics, he basically said if we got rid of all the birds off the planets, it would have the same effect as getting rid of off the bees off the planets, because of the energy that's created from the birds when they flap their wings. Because what they do is they cause mini vortexes, which create an energy. And it's an unseen energy, but it's still an energy that actually feeds the plants and feeds the planet. And so we've got to use those things that we see out there and see what we're doing in the same sort of way, whether it be energetic or doing that's affecting the planet. So yeah, it's not just this thing that comes out your head and doesn't affect anything. Like, it's an energy, and yeah, we really need to get that.
Yeah. I like to, like, when you said that, you know, we need to look at nature and how it really handles things that we actually would like to change. Or, you know, for example, when you turn soil and you just let it sit, like, certain plants will show up there, and they're different from the ones that are growing around in other places, but they are basically coming up to change the chemistry of the soil, and they're coming up to change the vibration of whatever it was that was just put in there. And so, you know, and the reverse is true too. Like, what contribution can we be sometimes with planting something on our property? I had just this really interesting example. Like, I was at a class and we were on this big farm, and there was a lot of interesting energy that was going on, and we kept asking questions about it. And then what really came up was that the property was asking for a space where there would be some contribution from planting something there, and then also not ever touching it, like really leaving it alone. And what was interesting was, like, the spirits were asking for that, and they wanted to move in there and live there and contribute to the land in the way they have been in the past. And in return, they would contribute to the horses and to the farm and everything that was going on. And so, you know, I made this stupid attempt to actually talk to the owner of the property and basically somehow get this across. And I was being as kind and, like, phrasing it in a way that would be easily digested, and yet it just fell on such deaf ears. It was amazing. Like, he was just saying, oh yeah, I have a piece of patch of land over there that I don't ever, and then he showed it to me, and it was like, no, it was well groomed, and there was like one bush on it, and I'm like, no, that wasn't really what was being asked for. But it was such a beyond for this person to even be like a conceivable possibility of, like, oh, I could just, like, literally have this really small space on my entire property that I could dedicate to some other energy, and that would contribute to me as a whole. And it's like, how often do we actually, as people, allow ourselves to even have that?
You're talking about that, Suzy, and it makes me wonder too how much that energy would feed our bodies, and how much would we not need to consume food if we had all those energies restored on the planet. You know what I mean? Like I don't think human beings have really got the concept of energy as how nature uses it. Like, nature uses unseen energies that we can't visually see with our eyes as a food source. And I wonder, like, situations what you're talking about, how much would that piece of land then contribute to the humans around it and to the animals? So, yeah, and it's one of the concepts we have to put out there, that, and it's like what Pam said at the start there, I don't think we really grasp the full effect of how the planet could contribute to us, because we're not allowing it to.
Yeah. But I also think that, like Pam said, how much about the planet don't we know? We don't know everything about the planet. We presume that we know, and there's probably hundreds of systems that the planet uses that we don't even know about. And like that piece of land that Suzy was just talking about, what if that, you know, that piece of land there, if a tree was planted, or you know, like, it was allowed to go back to what it was, actually what would that contribute to the whole planet, not just just that one piece of land, like, because maybe that parcel of land had some sort of spot that was especially energetic, which would help the whole area and the whole planet, because that's what we don't get. We've cleared a lot of places that should have probably been kept in trees, and that's affected the whole planet, not just the area. It affects the whole planet. And I think we forget that there's lots of systems that nature has that we don't know about, but we just, like I said, presume to know about and think that we know best, whereas nature has had these systems in place for millions of years, and if it just was able to go back to some of those systems, it could change so much.
And it's so easy. Well, it's so easy too. Like, it really, that is the part that feels so easy in a way, if we were really truly willing to receive that information and then change something. Because it really sounded like, oh my gosh, he just would have had to really like use a very small portion of his land for that in order to create so much more. And yet it was like, I don't even know, you know. Yeah, go ahead.
We've got to take money out of the computation. Like, money causes so many problems with the planet. Like, it was interesting to us when we got in, we had a bit of, for people that don't know, we had a few hiccups with the bank probably 5 years ago. And it was interesting to me, on this piece of land that we had, that the bank was after, it had a lot of massive big trees on it. And it was really interesting to me the number of people that said to us, just cut down all those trees, because those trees are probably worth $100,000. And it just wasn't in my mindset to do that. And it's funny how people automatically go to that money is going to fix the problem. And I can't, like that guy there, I was getting, Suzy, that maybe he wouldn't do it because of the money. And because that piece of land, in his reality, wouldn't then be able to be used. But what if we looked at it, what if he looked at it in a different perspective, and he did replant all those trees there, and the earth contributed to him in a way where he could make money somewhere else? And that's where we've got to allow the earth to nurture us in ways that we don't know is possible, and take money out of it and ask the earth to contribute to us. If we do this, hey earth, I need the money to survive, like, contribute to me please, so yeah, so I can survive.
So money more as an energy rather than all the things that we have been associating with it, and you know, and which actually it's interesting because Gary Douglas is about to facilitate at the end of this month is facilitate something about money, a 3-day, well, really more than 3, but a huge teleclass on this whole issue alone, because there is so much that we are judging, again, here we go with judgment, about money and having it, not having it, and you know, all this stuff, rather than as seeing it also just as an energy and an energetic method to also sometimes create something different. So, you know, but all the judgment that is involved with it is really, again, killing us and the planet. Yeah, definitely interesting stuff. And we do have some questions also. I've been sort of following the chat room a little bit, and it's kind of great. Thank you guys so much for all the contribution that you have been putting into the chat room. And I feel like a lot of it is actually what we're talking about as well. So I don't know if it's really requiring me to read it, but it's just nice to have your energetic contribution here to this whole thing. But you know, there is a little bit of that, like, so you know, basically the idea of what, you know, basically the destructor implants, do all of them have the same? Yes, they're all judgments. Let's just throw that in there real quick. And you know, basically, like, so some of the stuff about creation and destruction, or death and life and living, and so maybe we can talk a little bit about that too. And also what I want to throw in, we haven't actually really run a clearing yet, and maybe we should throw one in there just for the fun of it, just because also these are the tools that we are using quite dynamically in our own lives, and the tools that we all are working with. Although, so far it hasn't really popped in either. But so if there pops one in, let's just run one. I don't have one right there on the tip of my tongue either at the moment. So there you go. So, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, before we move on too much, I just want to say, when you were talking about the guy and the land and that he couldn't hear basically what you were saying, what it made me think of, I know Tim and Tanya and you, like, part of how you guys function is you'll have an awareness and then you ask questions about it, right? So this guy wasn't willing to ask a question like, oh, what's Suzy talking about? What's she aware of that I'm not? Or, if I ask myself questions, what will I be aware of? And it's like, I think it's so much a part of how we all function. I just want to highlight it because, like, Tim and Tanya, I know you guys probably ask questions all day long about your property and the animals and the plants. And Suzy, I've seen you in action in all kinds of ways doing that. And so it's not that any of us have any answers, but when you're willing to ask questions, you can create new possibilities, greater awareness. So if there is something like flits through your mind of like, oh, something about my property, that you can ask yourself, what is this? What can I do with it? Can it change? If so, how do I change it? That space of being willing to ask questions rather than going into this is how I've always done it or this is what I had in mind. I think that's a big difference in that space of being that we've been talking about.
That's great, Pam. Like Tim's dad's like a conventional farmer, so he's very similar, but he was growing ginger and he was having problems with his ginger, and he comes out and visits our next door neighbour because our next door neighbour has ginger, and he was asking him questions about it, and then he came and asked Tim questions about it, and Tim started asking me questions about it, and I was like, well, I don't get it's anything like, so we started asking questions too. So I said, I don't get it's anything to do with the soil. I said, I think it's the water he's putting on. That's what I got. So Tim, you went to him and said, I think it's the water, Dad. And what happened? He
got the water tested, and it had a really high content of salt in it. And what he did then was he pumped the water into a holding tank, let the salt settle out of it, then sprayed it on his ginger, and everything was fine. So it's just a great example, Pam, how you can use questions to change your reality. And it's when we're talking about money, just the power of that question saved Dad a lot of money. Because if he wasn't willing to ask a question, he would have lost his whole crop of ginger.
And I mean, he's a conventional farmer, but I think he's changing.
Yeah.
And he was willing to ask a question, which totally changed everything for him.
Yeah. And just so
I'm sure you guys had nothing to do with that, I'm sure.
I think it costs around $45,000 per acre just to plant ginger, so
wow.
It would have saved him a lot of money, just his willingness to ask questions. So yeah, it's one of the things, like even with that guy saying to us, chop down the trees, we were constantly in the question about that. What would our life be like in 5 years if we cut down all those trees? And other questions we asked, would that contribute to the farm? Would that contribute to the earth? Heaps of different questions you can ask. And would that really make us money? And in the end, we kept getting a no, 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 no. And in the end, everything worked out just fine for us because we asked the earth, we asked the earth to contribute to us. So, yeah, it's heaps of questions and save a lot of disharmony.
Well, and it's interesting too, because even when I look at my own life, how often am I actually willing to ask the earth for contributing to my life? I have to say that oftentimes I go into like, I can do it myself, or I can figure this out, or but to actually ask the earth for a contribution, or I would be like, oh my God, we're raping the earth, I better not ask the earth for contribution. But really how much judgment is in all that. And so how can we actually become more of that energy of asking the earth for a contribution, but also what contribution can we be to the earth? And, we heard a lot already, like, letting go of judgment. And is there some other tools that people can use on a daily basis maybe, or, what else is really possible?
Well, the first thing that comes to me is just what I like to do myself is what energy, space, and consciousness can I be, my body and I be, that would allow me to contribute to and receive from the earth with total ease.
Wow. It's so simple, Pam. So everything that doesn't allow that, let's destroy and uncreate it all. Times the godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, fun, fuck, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds.
And when you talked about, sometimes you don't ask the earth to contribute to you because, like, we're doing so much, taking from it already. I know you know this, but I say it to for everybody listening. Contribution is such a different thing than taking from, right? So actually, you can ask yourself, if you're willing to receive from the earth, is that actually a huge contribution to the earth? And if you feel lighter as I say that, then it's a yes. So, so it's like everywhere we go to, not wanting to take from the earth, contribution goes both ways. Suzy, if I contribute to you, that contributes to you, it contributes to me, and it contributes to the earth and everybody around us. Contribution is so much more than any kind of give and take thing, which is where we're used to functioning from.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. I think the earth is contributing to us all so much anyway, because if it wasn't, it would have chucked you off by now. Like, if you seriously, if you treated your dog or your wife or your kids or your husband, whatever you've got, like we treat the planet, there's no way they'd hang around. But the earth is so forgiving. And
well, it functions from no judgment.
Yeah. And imagine if we all function from no judgment, and also imagine how much the earth is contributing to us and we don't even realize it. Because if it wasn't, it would have thrown us off years ago.
I think that's where it's like the willingness to receive as well. Like, even though we might think we're not receiving, we actually probably are all the time from the earth. And it has no point of view about gifting that to you. It just continually does. And it doesn't stop. It has no judgment if you're not going to receive it. It'll just keep flowing it your way. And it just won't stop, because that's the way the earth functions.
And so I think what you've got to ask out there for some tools is you've got to ask, how can I intensify that? How can I make that contribution to myself greater? And I think what we try and do is that we ask the earth to contribute to us, but once it does contribute to us, you've got to acknowledge it, and you've got to, like the thing, what's an example, Tina, of how the earth's contributed to us?
Oh, well, it doesn't stop, really. I would say it's hard to say.
I can't think of a...
like a big one that probably is an example.
Well, I mean, I know something even of your property, which really, like, when you started asking questions, remember you guys were starting asking questions around the drought and the rain, so you can take it from there. I'm sure that...
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's always, yes. I mean, we had a period of time, it was really dry out here, and it was extremely wet, not wet, dry, and we were really wanting to have rain, so we were asking all the time for the rain to come, and it would build up, and it would build up, and then it wouldn't come, and it would just dissipate. And then, so we asked more questions, and like, we actually asked our property to start calling the rain in, and it did the same thing again this time, and then we were like, okay, so what energy do we have to be? And then the three of us got out and we started talking to the earth and the rain, and we were like, what energy do we have to be to bring that rain back? and we asked the Earth, and I think we pock and potted like everyone else's points of view about it, and not wanting it there or wanting it somewhere else, and it came back. And the guy that was working for us at the time, he said, "Geez, that storm was funny the other day." He said it totally missed everybody, and then it came back here, and he said, and it sat over here for ages. And we were like, we looked at each other and we went, oh yeah, that's right. Thank you, Earth. So yeah.
But like when Tanya was explaining that, it might have sounded like a long process, but it wasn't. It was just 5 minutes, just bang bang, this and this, and it's done. Like you don't have to sit down there and meditate for hours or
do a rain dance.
Do a rain dance. You've got to be and ask a question. What's going to take for the rain to show up with ease? And pot and pock everyone else's point of views that's not allowing the rain to come. And it's as simple as that. Like you don't have to. There's no set sequence of how you do it. It's just asking for it and having the willingness to receive. It's that simple.
Sometimes it's too easy, right?
Because I don't think people get to, with the judgment thing and with the point of views, that is like how we spoke before, how that's an energy. And that energy goes up in a bubble, and that alone doesn't allow the rain to form. Because the rain, how do I describe that? The rain is, the atmosphere is a highly organised body of elements. And when we contribute an energy to that interferes with all those elements, it causes the rain not to occur. So it's just a matter of dissipating that energy and allowing the energy to flow as it would normally and to reorganise itself back to how it should, and the rain patterns will just normally form and come back. It's amazing if you actually look at the scientific description of how rain occurs, and if you look at it from an energetic point of view, you really understand how judgments and thoughts, feelings and emotions can interfere with that. So just thought I'd add that.
Yeah, that's brilliant, actually. And, you know, we actually, we created a little poll during this hangout to just see what people would like to know more about. And so 43% of people actually would like to know what it would be truly to receive and be received by the Earth. That is mainly what people would want to know. But then the second thing that came in right after that at 36% is basically the questions that you could incorporate into everyday life that would expand the possibilities of your reality and the reality of the Earth. And I know we've been already talking quite a bit about that, and yet I do get some people really struggle with the idea of what is that to receive or be received by the Earth, you know. And I know, well, we can actually introduce like the tool of the 1, 2, 3, and like that is a huge contribution to the planet. And I know that for me personally, that has gifted me so much, especially when you have something going on with your body too. Like sometimes our bodies are just a sensory organ that is giving us information, and some of the things that we would define as pain are actually the body really trying to get our attention about something else that might be going on. And sometimes that can actually be the Earth asking for an energetic contribution. So when your body is in pain, next time maybe just ask like, hey, what is this? Is this actually my body being in pain, or is this my body communicating something else? And if it is that, you can even ask, is the Earth asking for a contribution? And if that's the case, you can literally just put up your hands and just go, okay, Earth, here's all the energy that I can gift you right now. And without a point of view, you just go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, as many times as you want to, desire to do, and just perceive the shift that might be going on then in your body, and just see if that is actually a contribution at that moment for the planet. And it might shift something completely, and you might say, wow, I would have never even thought of that as a possibility. So that's one way that we can actually, that I do often, like probably every day I do something like that, you know, and it's that simple. And like Tim was saying earlier, it didn't take 4 hours of meditation. It took a mere 20 seconds or 10 seconds, you know, so how cool is that? And I know we all have like little things like that, and Pam, you just shared something, and I know there's more, you know, so if we have a few more gems that we can give our visitors, I think that'd be awesome.
Sure, well, I'll do one, which is everybody shut your eyes. And
Me too?
yeah, you can. Or you can
Yeah, okay, fine, I'm just kidding. Nobody ever does it when we say it. Shut your eyes. Everyone is like, okay, I want to watch what's going on. Okay, I'm shutting my eyes.
Shut your eyes and just locate whatever you would consider the outer edges of you. And for some of you, that might be your, you know, your body. It might be outside your body. But whatever that is, now expand your awareness another 10 feet in every direction, including up above, down below. And then what if you expand 100 feet in every direction? Is there any reason you couldn't expand 100 miles in every direction? How about 100,000 miles? And if you start to go, wait, I don't know how to do that, you actually already did it before I even put the words into words. So what if you expand your awareness 100 billion miles in every direction? And then drop your barriers and just be aware of the earth. What if you allow you and your body to receive everything that every molecule of the earth is contributing to you right now? And what contribution can you and your body be to the earth right now? So just notice, do you and your body, is there any difference in what you're aware of with you and your body now versus before we expanded, dropped barriers, and received from the earth? So what if right now you start pulling energy from all over the universe through the earth and through you and your body? And all you have to do is ask, and the energy does that. So you're just pulling from everywhere through the earth, through you, and out you back to the universe. So what if any time you can choose to get this energy flowing and contribute to the earth, contribute to you, your body, and everything in the universe? And now allow yourself to be aware of the contribution that every molecule in the universe is to you and your body right now. And the contribution you are to every molecule in the universe. And then when you're ready, open your eyes. So just notice, do you feel any different?
Yeah, wow. Really, so the interesting part for me is the peace, really.
Could you say that again? You broke up a little.
The peace that is.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I mean, imagine if you could be that space all the time.
Hmm.
And imagine what that could contribute to the planet. And I think the other thing is too, have fun, laugh more, because laughter heals the planet too. What if we could laugh every day? Even if it's something stupid, I think that's going to contribute so much to the planet without us realizing it. So that's one thing too. Like, have fun, do things that make you laugh, do things that make you happy. That will contribute more than you know.
But I also think just one thing that we do sometimes too is we ask the earth to show us the magic, and and I think you'll see things that'll show up in your life, and I think after a while
Totally. That's actually so brilliant, because earlier in the chat somebody was asking about, the seeds that they had planted and they weren't showing up the way they did the year before. And it's so beautiful, even just the question, Earth, please show me the magic. What else is possible? Show me the magic of what else I can create here with that. And it doesn't even, it can just be that first, and then whatever might show up. Maybe the earth will say, hey, I require a little something here in the soil, or less water, more water, different kind of water. We just, that whole thing that you guys said earlier about the water itself maybe not being the contribution, if it was just slightly different. And so, all these things will show up when you just start asking the question, like, Earth, please show me the magic. That's beautiful. I really like that. That's awesome. Well, go ahead.
Like with the seed thing, Suzy, and the other thing where the planet doesn't function from right or wrong. And with the seed thing, not growing or whatever the problem was, there would have been some reason there or some logic behind that the earth knew why those seeds didn't shoot. And I don't think we've got to take out the wrong and the right of it. There is no wrong and the right, there just an is. And I think if we get that concept with the planet too, it'll make it a lot easier for us to be with the planet. Like just things like natural disasters, people see them as such a wrongness. But to me, there's no such thing as a natural disaster anyway. Natural disasters, to me, are really intensified by us humans. But I think with most natural disasters, it's actually the planet contributing to itself to create something greater. And you might think, well, how does a cyclone do that? But there seems to be a lot of destruction with cyclones, but it's actually a rebirthing of the planet, and the destruction that is caused is actually organic matter that goes back into the soil that actually contributes to the planet. And it's also after a cyclone. Have you ever gone?
Whoops, I think we just lost them.
Yeah.
Oh, they're frozen.
I can speak about something similar because, now, Suzy, you live in the Southwest too, but before you did, we live in a place where there's a lot of wildfires. And a few years ago, my town was evacuated because there was the biggest wildfire in the history of the state. And, Tim, you guys are back?
Yes, we're back.
Well, you guys are talking about, the points of view and everything. Everyone I knew was, oh no, this is terrible, because the town had burned 10 years before from a fire. And I was using my access tools, and I didn't have a point of view about it. It was just like, okay, what's required? What do we need to take with us? Where are we going to go? And I had been asking for a lot of change in my life. And I was actually willing to receive from the fire because I didn't have a point of view about it being wrong. And the energy that fire was and the change it was creating in the land here and in just everywhere, if you were willing to receive it, was phenomenal. And so, you know, that's where, if I had the point of view, this is terrible, this is a fire, the trees are all burning, blah, you know, I wouldn't have been able to receive any of that. And I also think I would have blocked some of what the earth could receive from it, from all that point of view, but being that space of allowance of, wow, this is what it is, and what can I contribute to it, what can I receive from it, that created something totally different.
Yeah, that's great.
So cool.
Yeah.
I think, Tim, I think we lost you when you were just about to explain about the cyclone. So now we're all curious. So you were saying the cyclone creates, and then you were gone. So what does it create?
So look, whether it be a cyclone, I think you guys in the northern hemisphere call them hurricanes. But if you look at it from an Earth point of view, it's actually a giant big vortex. And what that vortex does is it actually cools down the area where that cyclone occurs. And it has a sort of a cleansing effect. So you've got to look at the energetics of it too. I'm sure the cyclone causes a lot of destruction, which puts back a lot of organic matter into the soil. Gets rid of a lot of old dead trees and all that sort of stuff. But we've also got to look at it from an energetic point of view, what does a cyclone or hurricane or tornado create from an energetic point of view. And because it's basically a giant big vortex, what it does is it has an effect of cleaning up the atmosphere, and it has a cooling effect, and that cooling effect brings the atmosphere back into its natural organisation, which allows things to fall back into their natural abilities to create rain without any interference. And if you actually go out after a hurricane or a cyclone and look at the atmosphere, it's so clear. Like it's really stunning to notice it. And I encourage people to go out after you have a big storm or a big cyclone, and just look at nature. And there's such a sense of peace, and there's such a clearness and a stillness in the atmosphere, like everything's been cleansed. And I think it's like what Pam said, if we go into the wrongness of that, it dissipates a lot of that energy that's been created from that cyclone, because we're looking at it as a wrongness of the planet, but it's just a natural cleansing process of the earth. But I do think that we're intensifying them by what we're doing on the planet, like the earth is creating them even stronger and stronger. So it's cleaning up our mess to basically try and get the harmonics of the earth back in sync.
Yeah.
I hope everyone understands that.
Yeah. You made it very clear, actually. Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, I think we're sort of coming towards the closing part here of our Google Hangout, and I just want to say again, like, how much I'm so thrilled that the three of us got together and that people are out there watching us right now. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And what I really wanted to say too, if you really would like to know more about all of these topics, first of all, of course, you can look us all up, and Tim and Tanya are doing fantastic things, and all of us have classes and calls and all sorts of things going on that you can play with. But then there's something very dear to me that's coming up soon, which is at the end of January. Actually, Gary Douglas and Dane are doing a class together that is about the Earth, and all the proceeds from that class are actually going to El Lugar, which is a piece of property in Costa Rica that is waiting for us to actually be acquired by us to create a totally different future on the planet that has to do with a different kind of land management, a little bit of what you've heard here, and really creating a place on the planet that can function as a space where people can actually learn more about all the things that we just talked about. So this 3-day Earth class is going to have so much information and so many other possibilities and clearings and questions you can ask and all sorts of things. And it is actually live streamed, so anybody can really join around the world, which is so phenomenal. And not only are you going to get a lot of information, but you're also going to have a lot of contribution to creating a space on the planet that really will contribute to all the things we talked about in a very dynamic way. So please consider that as a possibility too, and check it out. And like Tim was saying earlier, you can always ask the question, what will my life be like in 5 years if I do this? What will my life be like in 5 years if I don't do this? And that gives you a lot of information about so many things that you are choosing on a daily basis. So not just about whether or not coming to a class, but really so many other things in your life. If I buy this piece of fruit, what will my life be like? You can use it for that too. So just use the questions that are available to you and really use them to create a different possibility, to really create the life and living that you know is possible and that you have been wishing to create your entire life and never really had the tools. And here are the tools. They're so simple. Just asking questions. So, yay. So I want to let you guys talk too. I don't want to just, be the one that ends it all. And that's what I really wanted to say about that. And so back over to you guys. And it's just been such a pleasure to hang out on the Google Hangout.
Well, thank you, Suzy, for making all this happen. The thing I'd like to leave people with is every 10 seconds, you can choose which space you're going to be. That space we did when we expanded out, or the space of judgment and the right and the wrong of things. And know that that choice really does change things for the planet. Every time you choose to be space, it's a contribution to the planet. And all it takes is a few moments a day. I mean, if everyone listening to this but had 5 minutes a day that they chose to be that space, what would that create for the planet?
Okay. Look, what the topic of the conversation was, we have to acknowledge that the Earth is a living, breathing organism. And I think in saying that, we have to realise this is our home. This is our planet. This is where we live. We've really got to wake up and realise, how are we treating this place we live on? And we've only got one of these planets. And like, if you look at it, that concept, would you really emit all that judgment, hate, anger, rage, and hate and fear that we're putting out there? And I really, truly believe that consciousness is the thing that's going to change the face of the planet. It's not all these different types of farming. It's not a technology that's going to be invented. It's us, and it's the energy that comes out of our heads that is creating a lot of destruction on this planet. And I think once we start to look as the planet as our house and our contributor and our provider, we will create a totally different planet here that hopefully will be sustainable for millenniums and millenniums. And if you just get the energy of what Pam spoke about before, when Pam did that exercise, and the peace that's in the planet, imagine if we had that peace 24/7. It would be fantastic. Anyway, guys, thanks for having us, and thanks, Suzy, for creating this. It's been fun, and thanks, Pam, too. Hopefully we can do more.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'd just like to say, I think if we can every day ask that question about show me the magic, I think that will change a lot as well. And like I said before, be happy and laugh and actually bring more of that into your life as well. That's going to change the planet too.
Well said.
Yes. Well, thank you all again, and so we'll say goodbye, and there's a lot of gratitude and thank you from the chat room as well, so thank you all so much for being here, and what a blast, and yes, let's do it again sometime soon. What else can we create? Bye.
Bye.